Good evening, everyone. Uh, Welcome to the first episode of CCKF on air. And we've been wanting to do interviews with our anglers, our winners and our anglers after a tournament. And it turned into a little bit more. Some of you may or may not know, have heard me say in the past that I was formerly the president of Lee County Wildlife Club in Lee County, North Carolina. And one of our big outreaches of that was hunter education. And then monthly, we would have a speaker come in, typically a biologist from the state, a professional fisherman, a professional hunter, a TV host. We just brought in lots of different speakers to come in to try to educate our members. And with CCKF, we have the opportunity to educate anglers. And so that was something that was in the back of my mind. And on one of our Facebook posts one day, a response was, hey, would your club, not even to me, to one of our members, would your club be interested in getting a presentation from a biologist from the state? And we were like, absolutely. And it's just kind of, I just assumed that we would just have one chat. And it just seems like it may turn into multiple chats on several different situations. So tonight we're going to have Seth, and I'm going to have to ask him. I haven't asked him yet to make sure how to pronounce the last name, but I'm going to say Mycko for the moment, and we'll confirm that. But Seth is a marine or a fisheries biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. He works in District 3, I believe. I should have that up, which covers Lee County, where I am. It also covers Chatham County. So it covers Jordan Lake. It covers Mycko and Mayo. And so Seth's going to come on and talk about some of the projects that are going on, not only in our local lakes, like those three that I mentioned, but also over at Harris. I know that you've seen these fences up in the backs of some of the coves, and maybe you do or do not know what those are. So he'll explain those. He's also going to talk about spotted bass introduction into some of our local waters and why that's a bad thing. So really looking forward to talking to him. Just a couple of housekeeping items that we'll talk about as we get started. Number one, it's going to be a two-part presentation. So the first is going to be on the bass. So because we can't hear you, if you have any questions, type them in the comments. And then once he gets through the bass part of the presentation, I will read the questions out and he can answer them. And then he'll go into the wildlife habitat projects. Same thing. When we get to the end, we will answer all the questions that you posted in the comments. Please post questions if you have them, because that's what this is about, is so that the state, so that CCKF, that we can do all we can, to educate our anglers as to what's going on, how to better protect our resources, how to better utilize our resources. So if you have questions, I think we definitely want to put them, to at least put them out there for Seth to answer them for us. Somebody commented, sweet hat. This is a prototype. So I ordered the gray and orange and the white and gray hats. They came in. The people that paid for shipping, they're all boxed up. They're getting ready to go out. This hat cost us $2 more because of the camouflage print. But if we have a lot of demand for them, we can do a special order just for the camouflage, or we can, next time we place a hat order, we can get some camouflage in with the others. The only thing, we have to keep the logo stitching the same. And that way, as long as we buy a certain number of hats, regardless of the color of the hat, we get pricing discounts. So with all that, I'm going to bring Seth up now. Good evening,
Hey.
Seth. How are you doing, man?
Hey, Mitch, how are you? Thanks for having me tonight. And you nailed the last name. It is Mycko, so that's
good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're the one that initiated this, and it was just, like I said, it was just kind of timely. I've been looking for things to do, charities for us to support, just different ways that we can outreach a little bit. I mean, we do have an audience through this. So it's nice to know that we can use it not just for our own tournaments and our own fishing pleasure, but we can actually do some type of educational outreach with it as well. And hopefully this can grow into something bigger, a podcast series or whatever we want to call it from CCKF. And hopefully you have lots more information to disseminate and we can get it out there. So
there's plenty to share. And hopefully, as down the road, as you have tournaments on certain lakes, we could, hyper focus in on certain lakes and really focus on some of our results from some of those lakes around the state. So,
all right. Well, if you would just give a brief introduction of yourself, and then and just tell me when you're ready for me to bring up the slideshow, and I'll pull it up for you.
Yeah. So, like Mitch said, my name's Seth Mycko. I'm here in District 5. So we're smack in the north central Piedmont. Our largest 3 reservoirs that me and my counterpart are responsible for are Jordan, Mycko, and Mayo Lake. And we do all the game fish management within District 5. So basically, if it has a creel or a size limit, we're responsible for making sure that it's happy and healthy in the lakes and ready to be caught by the anglers. And, one thing I've learned recently is that Facebook has been a great tool for us to outreach to you guys. Some of the bass clubs seem to be waning and fading off nowadays. It seems like a lot more things are moving to Facebook. So I'm glad we were able to connect that way and get to this point. So we can dive in. I've got some info about myself in that first slide of my presentation, and about how we're divided throughout the state here. So I'm originally from a town called Lawrence, South Carolina, down in the central part of South Carolina. I went to Clemson University. I received both my degrees from Clemson University. I have a degree in what's called wildlife and fisheries ecology from that school. I spent 6.5 years down there, 6 good years, right there on the banks of Lake Hartwell. Fished a lot of the Savannah lakes like Hartwell and Clarks Hill and that kind of thing. And I was a college bass angler on that team all the way back in 2009, 10, and 11. So that was a good time in my life. And I'd like to call myself a current angler, but I'm more of a donator these days. We fish the cat trails, and I fish with a club here in Alamance County, and I do more donating than angling, it seems like sometimes. And this is how our fisheries biologists are divided throughout the state. We have 9 districts within North Carolina, from the mountains to the coast, and each region of the state has 3 districts. So we have a coastal region, which is 1, 2, and 4. Our Piedmont region, which is what I'm a part of, is 3, 5, and 6. So all the Raleigh lakes are in the Piedmont region. Some of Lake Norman is within the Piedmont region, and then the mountain has their own region in 7, 8, and 9, where we have all of our high elevation lakes. And some of those names, we've had a few staff changes here recently. District 2 in particular, Ben has moved up to supervisor there, and TD is now the actual fish biologist in District 2. So there's been a little changes to this structure since this was made. But in general, that's how you get a hold of 90% of the fisheries biologists in the state of North Carolina. And so one issue we're worried about right now is what we historically called spotted bass. So around 2008, a lot of genetics work started on black bass and black bass fisheries throughout the nation. And we realized that there was a genetic difference big enough between spotted bass and what at the time we considered a variant of the spotted bass called the Alabama spotted bass. And they were able to collect enough genetic information to actually scientifically name Alabama bass their own species. So now most of the spotted bass in North Carolina are not true spotted bass like you'd think of in a lot of the Kentucky reservoirs, or when you got to Missouri and Table Rock and those spotted bass, they're different than the spotted bass we have here in North Carolina. You probably know they've been in Norman and Blues Creek for 20, 30 years in some of those lakes. And they were moved to Gaston relatively recently. We think about 2016 is when they ended up in Gaston. And these are all illegal introductions. So the only place that the NCWRC has ever put a spotted bass or a bass with a tooth patch east in any part of the state would be the Cape Fear River, where we did some experimental stockings in the 70s. So apparently there's some anglers who like them, and they're out there illegally introducing them. And I'd like to go into how that's a bad thing for our state. Everybody, anytime I talk to any angler about Alabama bass or spotted bass, they always say, well, they start out great. They get 4 or 5 pounds. Why are they so bad over time? And if you think about a farm pond, I don't know if anybody's ever fished a farm pond who's never been harvested, or a farm pond with a lot of small fish. The more fish you get in a lake, the overall size decreases over time, right? So you can see on this hypothetical graph of a lake, as the number of bass, both largemouth and Alabama bass, increase in a lake, the overall average size of the fish is going to go down as those fish reproduce. So you're just spreading more of that food across the lake, and they're competing, with themselves after a certain time period. And it can be a bad thing for tournament anglers specifically. I don't know if you've ever been to any of the Savannah River lakes. They're really starting to hit some of these issues where they have a lot of small Alabama bass in those lakes. So from a tournament fisherman's perspective, I think you guys met you're usually measuring the fish. It's a measuring system. But if you're weighing fish, you'll see a 5 to 8 pound drop after 10 years and an 8 to 10 pound drop after 20 years. We watched this happen on Hartwell, where the 90s, a 25 to 7 pound bag was a good bag in the 90s. And then the early 2000s rolled around, and we saw that drop to the low 20s. And now like 17, 18, 19 pounds is a great day on Hartwell. So seeing tournament weights drop, and some people even say, well, are they truly better for Clearwater lakes, or are they truly better for, lakes with more small shad? But no, that's not really typically true for Alabama bass. In some lakes, some lakes just aren't good bass lakes. They don't have the forage they need. They don't have the nutrient load that they need. And if the largemouth can't grow, a spotted bass isn't going to grow big either. So we always like to remind anglers of that. And this graph here is from our Norman data that we collected over the early 2000s into the late 2010s on Lake Norman. And you can see how it was just a shift in the number of fish. So our largemouth numbers dropped off and the Alabama bass numbers shot up. And there was really not an increase in size. It was just a shift in the number of bass and how many are in there of each species. So we've been watching that and tracking that change at Lake Norman for a while now. And there's really not much we can do about it, unfortunately. So I always say that largemouth bass, they're not going to disappear, but which do anglers want? Do you want these 25 to 30 pound stringers in lakes, lakes, especially our Raleigh lakes? We just saw 31 pounds get weighed in a cat tournament. And I think there was a 38 pound bag weighed in at a PBC on Jordan this year. So I would be scared that if Alabama bass ever ended up in Jordan or Falls, that our 30 pound stringers would, over the decades turn into 20 pound stringers. So that's a fear that I have. And it's a choice that these anglers who are introducing these fish have to make. Do you want a lot of small fish, or do you want fewer large fish? So it's just a choice that people are making when they stock these fish illegally. And so that's just my little spiel there. And with that, I'll take any questions from the group, from the crowd.
Yeah, to this point, no questions have been posted. I'm looking to see my dog coming in back there in the background. I don't see anything yet. So, the one thing that I found interesting in our talk really is that like you even mentioned, I thought a spotted bass was a spotted bass.
Yeah.
So,
and even us biologists are having to retrain our brains and our terminology that we use, because they're morphologically very similar. They look identical almost, other than a few scale counts and things like that. But they behave differently. And what we're really trying to figure out is they do great in the Coosa River where they're native. That's why they're called Alabama bass. But when you put them in a reservoir in North Carolina, they do not behave the same way. they overcrowd and it just becomes an issue. So,
all right. Well, if you want to go ahead and move into the next section.
yeah, hopefully we'll have some more interest in what's going on with this stuff. So there's 4 of us in the commission now who are really involved in a lot of these habitat enhancement projects. So if anybody's ever been out to Harris or some of our smaller Greensboro lakes have a lot of these. We're doing both artificial and natural aquatic habitat enhancement projects. So we basically will go out to a lake and we build a fence in the middle of a lake, and we fill that fence full of native aquatic weeds. So we're trying to get lily pads and eelgrass growing. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of the lakes out in Alabama that have eelgrass, and they're great bass fishers. We plant a lot of eelgrass, and we basically make plastic trees, and we throw just PVC trees in the reservoirs. And the first thing I'll talk about is what we call founder colonies. So that's what the cage is for. So we're hoping to establish a founder colony within that cage in hopes that it spreads outside of the cage, like seen here, where you got all your plants growing within the cage, within the fence, and then you have some creeping out and just spreading throughout the cove or whatever area we plant them in. And our current lakes within the Piedmont that we're doing this in, there are some mountain lakes and not many coastal lakes, but we do this a lot in the Piedmont lakes. We have a little lake called Oak Hollow in Greensboro, the city of Greensboro. Harris is a big project we just got going. We're doing some of this at Mycko at Gaston. Gaston's the poster child for this effort. It's been going on for over 12, 13 years now, and it's really taken off at Gaston, and then another small reservoir in Greensboro called Lake Townsend. And we're producing a lot of pots per year. So we produce about 3,000 pots per year and take them to mainly Piedmont lakes. And these are a multitude of species. I think we've tried close to 14 species now. We have a white water lily, which is your traditional lily pads. We have spatterdock, which is kind of in the pad family. It doesn't grow quite as deep. We do a lot of water willow like you see on falls. Bulrush, or what some anglers call buggy blips. Maiden cane, we've tried that some. Pickerweed and eelgrass is a big one for bass anglers that we're really trying to get growing out there in these lakes. It can be great bass habitat when it does finally take off. And these are some pictures of these various exposures and lakes where we're trying to get these plants going. It's more of a career goal for most of us to establish these plants because they're slow growing species, and we're trying to slowly get them established and spreading within these lakes. So the theory is that we initially plant the fence with 4 to 6 species. Those species grow within the fence, and then they spread out and just start creating little pockets of plants throughout the cove, and then hopefully eventually we'll have entire coves full of these native aquatic plants that bass love to get in and spawn around, and also, ambush prey around, which is what the fishermen need. And we also cut and cable trees. So I don't know if anybody's been to Harris really recently. We'll go and we actually just cut trees down and let them fall right in the lake and then cable them to the bank so they don't float away. And you can throw a swim bait by these trees or throw a jig in the top of them, and it's great bass habitat. But it's not really a long-term solution like the aquatic weeds are, because it'll decay over time pretty rapidly. But this is something we do to just give the anglers more habitat to target and the fish something to get around. So Harris is one of our biggest lakes we got going right now. We actually got a grant to help us out on Harris. We have 35 of these fence sites at Harris and 45 of our water willow sites. So our water willow is the only species we don't have to put a protective cage around. The cage is mainly to keep turtles out and little critters that love to eat these plants. And luckily, water willow is not very high on a turtle's diet list. So turtles stay out of our water willow that's seen here. If you've ever been to falls, I'm sure you've seen water willow growing in the lake. And the overall goal for our Harris project is to establish at least at least a minimum of 1 acre of native aquatic vegetation in the lake. And we're growing these. We're actually, we do all the work start to finish. We pot the plants in the pots and we grow them in our aquatic plant nursery. We have 14 tanks and what we call troughs. We have these big long troughs that we plant these plants in, and we grow them out to about 3 foot high for most species that grow that high. And then we cart them to the lake and go plant them. Right now, we've narrowed it down to about 8 different species we're successful with, mainly that spatterdock and water willow. Pickerelweed's another big one for us. And in 2020 specifically, we planted more than 2,300 potted plants out of this nursery. So we're really putting a lot of effort into these projects and getting these plants established in the lakes. And we have the potential to grow close to 4,500 plants in our greenhouses per year. So we're definitely going to keep it up and try to keep things growing for you guys. And then I guess we'll stop here and we'll take any of the aquatic vegetation questions that people might have before we go into our artificial habitat work.
Got a couple that popped up, and then we also got some of the fish stuff.
Okay. I see that Harris needs lily pads for sure.
Oh, you can see those? Okay. I didn't know if you can see them or not.
And that's
and I know you and I talked about that the other day.
Yeah, this species here is called a lotus plant, and it was actually in Harris for a while. But the lotus that was there prior to our project actually got a stem boring beetle that would burrow down to live in the stems of that plant, and that's what killed a lot of the lotus there. So we're planting both lotus and traditional lily pads, which is called white water lily there. And we're doing this all summer long. I think at the end I have a call for volunteers where we basically start the end of May and we're planting plants all the way until the 1st of September.
Let me see. We won't address the fish questions yet.
Is there a perfect lake scenario in the U.S. that you eventually want North Carolina lakes to resemble? Perfect lake scenario. Probably Guntersville is a good example of having a lot of vegetation. It has a lot more flow than most of our reservoirs do, but the species in Guntersville, that eelgrass, we'd love to get that growing, and we're gonna continue to get that growing. So trying to think, we wouldn't want to ever reach Florida status because we have so many user groups using our lakes. We have jet skiers and pleasure crafts and that kind of thing. So hopefully, by the end of my career, we'll have 6 or 7 coves per lake that are just full of vegetation for anglers to go use. I think would be a good goal, a good career goal, as slow as it can grow. I think it's taken them close to 15 years now at Harris to get, Gaston to get Gaston to where it is. And if anybody's ever been to Gaston, you can see what it can become. Have you ever been to Gaston, Mitch?
I have not.
Okay.
I've been to Kerr, however guys want to.
Yeah.
Pronounce it.
I don't know if Virginia's responsible for all the management at Carr, Bugs Island.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they do any of this work up in Virginia or not.
One guy said that it seems as though the loss of hydrilla not only changed the bass behavior, but also affected ducks at Harris.
Yes, the ducks love to. I think they even eat hydrilla, so that's why the ducks left. They probably went to a different river nearby.
I figured.
And the bass are definitely still in there. They've just changed the way the places they like to go to, and they're probably a little more brush pile oriented now, I'd imagine, versus getting in those hydrilla beds.
So I wondered if you have any insight. So the bass at Harris were very hydrilla oriented.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, that's gone. We've got a lot of laydowns there in Harris now. Yeah. From the tornadoes, but also from the work that you guys have been doing. And I know that they've been putting in the man-made habitat some submerging some man-made habitats.
Yeah.
Is there a period of time that it takes the bass to become used to the new style habitat?
Yeah, I mean,
And do they know?
it's probably more rapid than we think. I bet there's fish around it within a couple of days' time. And then once they learn where everything is, I bet within a month or two they've got their favorite little spots that they'll hop between, and it was probably seasonal. As they're going up the creeks, they probably prefer certain structures in the creeks. And then in summertime, I'm sure they're, in some of those deepest ones we put out there near the main river channel, and especially on Harris. I bet they get on the main lake a lot in the middle of summer. If you can brave the boat traffic, especially in a kayak, I bet Harris is not a fun lake for a kayak in the middle of summer.
One guy's asking about Tuckertown and says the stuff that grows in Tuckertown, is it wanted in that area, or is that something that you guys are fighting?
It is something that we're all like, especially NC State is doing a lot of work on that. It's called Lingbia, and it's actually a member of the bacteria family. It's not a true vascular plant. And even if you kill it, it still stays there, and just gets all goopy where it's at. That's one issue with treating it, that it never truly goes away. It just like slowly rots on the bottom for years. And there's a professor at NC State who's doing a lot of work in, remediation of that. But it is, a natural member of the bacteria that's always been around the water. And it seems to increase with increased nutrient loads. So anywhere we get, a lot of wastewater discharge, there seems to be more Lingbia, it seems. So that's definitely something we're fighting with, the increased development, but it's definitely something everybody's looking at.
Here. I think you already said it, but they're asking what kind is in the back of Harris. So I'm assuming they're talking about the lily pads.
Yeah, there's probably some lotus. I haven't been to Harris recently to know exactly where they've planted everything. There's definitely some lotus growing there, and hopefully within the cages we've got actual real whitewater lily pads growing. That species is one that turtles absolutely adore eating. So anywhere a turtle can get in our cages, they love to eat them lily pads.
And then the last question that I've seen so far related to plant life is, have we had any algae bloom growth in any waterways that concern the state?
No, I don't think we've ever had anything to a concerning level. If we get hot summers with low amounts of rain, we can fight some more algae issues. You like to have a good flush kind of to get some rain flow going. But hot stagnant water is our enemy with algae. So anytime we get a drought, we definitely will be more concerned about algae. And there's a whole nother division of the state called the Division of Water Resources, and they're all the time doing water quality sampling and that kind of thing. And with increased development around these reservoirs, it's probably going to be an increasing issue.
So to go back to some fish questions really quickly that some of the guys asked. One guy was asking about the shad die-off last year at Harris, and then also in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so those small-scale shad die-offs, I don't think we call it, a lake-wide event, can actually help some of our bass lakes. Because, it's kind of a naturally occurring thing where once you get so many shad in a lake and it gets real cold, they start to die off, and it just resets your shad population. So your bass will be gorged and they'll be full. That's why people struggled to catch them right after that happened, because they were just swimming around the lake full of dead and dying shad. But it probably will help their overall body condition this year.
We were out there last year, and the birds were everywhere. The shad were floating everywhere, and the birds were everywhere, and everybody was frustrated because nobody could catch a fish. So the next question I've got is about an introduction of spotted bass to the Cape Fear River in the 70s.
Yeah, so that was us. That's the only WRC stocking event of a spotted bass in the state, I think. So that was way back in the 70s. The biologist in District 4 actually went and caught some fish. That shows you how how much of a different time it was in those days. But they actually drove down and caught some fish in Alabama and carted them back and spawned out some brood stock from those, and ended up stocking them in Avitts Creek, I think was one of them. And then I don't know if they stocked the Cape Fear, the main stem, or not, but Avitts Creek was definitely one of the sites they used.
Were there
and we took genetics on those in the fall, so we should know if they're true Alabama bass this year.
Okay. And then the last one that I've seen until I scroll to catch up is there anything being done to control the carp in Harris? And were they state introduced, or how did those carp get introduced?
Yeah, so common carp are, they were probably in there before it was impounded. They're just a naturally, I guess you'd call them naturalized fish now. Those were brought over from Europe in the, colonial times. Those used to be a really popular fish in the turn of the century for a food fish and things like that. So they were probably in the rivers before the impoundments were even built. And they thrived in that shallow, weedy habitat, and I think their population is really getting up there now. But we don't have any plans or anything right now to do any sort of control of the carpet Harris right
now. How much has the entrance to spotted bass and blues depleted the largemouth population?
Yeah, so it's a sad story. You'll basically see your largemouth get bullied out of the main lake and into the dirtiest water that you can find, and it's not a lot of that in Blues Creek. So there's probably a very small amount of largemouth compared to what there were prior to the Alabamas being in there. Anywhere you can find dirty water, you'll find some largemouth in those lakes. Norman's a prime example of that. If you go up the river where the actual Catawba River comes into Norman, you'll see a lot more largemouth up there. But yeah, they get bullied off the main lake habitat for sure. They just can't compete with those aggressive spotted bass. Or I gotta correct myself, Alabama bass.
Yeah, and so the way this StreamYard program works, sometimes there's a link out there that people have to click that I can see who's posting stuff.
Yeah.
But somebody knows you because they're saying, "What's up, Seth?"
I wonder who that is. Might be someone I went to college with.
Here's an interesting question. What's the biggest bass that you've ever seen during shocking?
Yeah, I better not say what lake that is because I got some buddies around here that would shoot me for that. But there's a little lake near our office here that if I've seen an 8-pounder, that fish was every bit of 13.
Wow.
Yeah, we didn't get a net on it because the big fish get away from our electricity so easy, but it was at least 12, 13 pounds. It was a giant in a big lay down tree in a little tiny lake around Alamance County, and I'll leave it at
that. One person's asking, where is your office?
So we're in a satellite depot right here in Mebane, North Carolina.
Whoever that is said, "Don't be giving away my secret." So it's somebody.
I think the word's out a little bit on that lake, so it's not totally a secret, but yeah.
You got so you showed us the districts early in your presentation. Does each district have one satellite office? Are there multiple offices per district? Or
no, we're in a rare situation where we have an office. A lot of our biologists work out of their homes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think us and District 1 and 2 maybe have offices. But yeah, all the other districts are mainly home-based.
And one guy commented,
in our office is all those pictures of the greenhouse is where we have our whole aquatic plant nursery right here at our depot in Mebane.
Okay. And one guy said that he had seen them doing shocking at Lake Raleigh.
Yeah.
And said it was very, very interesting. I've seen the pictures of the Big John boat with the rig out on the front. So
yeah. We call it a catching boat. I always tell my bass fishing buddies, if you really want to see what's out there, I'll take you out in the catching boat. We'll leave the fishing boat at the house.
Yeah. Well, I'll pull your presentation back up now.
All right.
And you can start talking about some more of the habitat stuff. And
yeah. So this is basically our plastic component to our habitat work. We spend a lot of time every winter, especially our hatchery staff down at our McKinney Lake State Fish Hatchery. They do a lot of our work creating these, artificial habitats, and these basically trees and little brush piles made out of PVC pipe and PEX pipe and plastic pots and all kinds of stuff. And Harris is actually a good example of where we've done a lot of this work. We've got an actual 5-year habitat plan to enhance Harris with the hydrilla being removed nowadays. And fish attractors are a big component of that. We've had a lot of help from stakeholder groups. The actual Bass Pack and the NC State collegiate anglers has helped us there. Various recreational anglers have come out. We've had a couple guides in the Raleigh area help us, and then the county park is a big part of this project at Harris. And we do it statewide. There's an interactive map on our website. You can click on that link there, or just search, NCWRC artificial habitat map, and it'll be one of the first links in Google. And we're all the time we're asking anglers, where do you want this stuff, and where do you want us to stay away from if you've got a honey hole that you don't want us to put stuff at. So bear in mind, get our emails. If you got a little spot you'd like us to put a fish attractor, let us know, and we'll see if we can work it into our rotation. We're doing this at just about every lake in the state now. And the interactive map is pretty cool. It's got all of our GPS locations. You can click each little dot and it'll tell you what's there with the actual GPS location. You can even download an Excel file that has all the lat longs and put them on an SD card straight to your units. And it's a pretty cool interactive website we have going now for these. And Harris is a prime example of where we're doing this, and we have up to 780 total attractors since 2018 now. So Harris is really getting covered up with a lot of good habitat, good artificial habitat. And we have what we're calling shallow water coves, where we're putting attractors in less than 10 feet of water. And there's 260 attractors in most of those coves. You can see them here, where these two down here in the lower end of the lake, and then this one up here. There's more than 200 attractors in each of those coves at Harris. And they have a danger buoy. The buoy is kind of confusing because it says Danger Fishing Cove, but that's just for the pleasure boaters out there to know that, there's a lot of stuff to hit in there. So it's really great fishing habitat, especially for kayak anglers in those coves. And I just took the time out here to highlight how far it is, like a paddling distance from the 2 boat ramps. So the one closest to Holloman's boat ramp is 0.8 of a mile from that boat ramp, so not a terrible paddle. And then the one on the lower end near Cross Point is only a half mile paddle, but on the water to get to all that stuff. There's stuff anywhere from 2 feet of water to 25 feet of water.
And a lot of our guys, very few of our guys are stuck with traditional paddles anymore.
Oh, okay. So they're trolling.
There's a lot of pedaling guys, and there's a lot of motorized guys now too.
Yeah, and, I made it down to the Classic, and we were looking at some of those Old Town kayaks, and this guy was like, "Oh, this is like a $18,000 kayak with everything on." I said, "18,000? Good gosh!"
Yeah, I think some of the guys invest almost as much as the bass boat guys.
Okay.
I think you can.
Yeah.
James Britton asked, why was the hydrilla removed from Harris?
That's a loaded question. It was already going down to begin with, and then it causes some issues for Duke Power. That was part of the problem, and it also seasonally it causes issues for the other stakeholders on the lake. So that all the different stakeholder groups, that kind of thing, and and it is a federally listed noxious weed. So the groups that are in charge of managing against hydrilla, they have a federal mandate to actually actively manage against hydrilla, because it's listed as on the same vein as zebra mussels are.
One person asked a very interesting question that I had not even considered. Do the interactive maps show that the date that the attractor was placed?
I don't think they do. No, they don't have the date of placement, but you can just about guarantee if it's on Harris, it was last summer or the summer before last.
Yeah, I know
Just
last
about
summer was a
for Harris.
huge effort for the tree cutting.
Yeah,
We saw a lot of the trees go in the water.
yeah. So we actually got a grant from the Reservoir Fisheries Habitat Partnership, and it's a 5-year. We have to use all the funding within 5 years of that grant starting in 2018. So we'll be wrapping it up here in the next couple summers.
One person said they caught a largemouth over the winter at Harris that was tagged, and they were wondering, was that a wildlife tag or a personal tag? Or
no, I've heard about that happening at lakes, and I think that there's some guys out there tagging them just to see if they can recapture them in the same little area or something. The only tagging project that we have right now is out on Lake Norman with the hybrid striped bass, where there's reward tags.
So there's a question,
and we have white bass in Falls Lake that have hydroacoustic transmitters within their bodies, but you probably wouldn't know that.
You wouldn't know that they have it.
Yeah,
but if you take it home, no.
Yeah, if you fillet it and it's got a big black transmitter in it, you know it's ours.
So Jordan, I don't know when they cut it out, but they used to stock the hybrids at Jordan.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't seem to be a thing anymore. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. So Jordan is a tangled web for what we call marauded species, the stripers and hybrids. So Jordan is a relatively stagnant, hot water, dirty water system, and those fish don't do great in those. And also those fish leave Jordan very easily during floods. So we stock them, 3-inch fingerlings in September usually. So when we have those fish ready from the hatchery. And then if we get a hurricane in October, all that flow drives those fish downstream out the dam to the Cape Fear.
They go out because they're expelling so much water, they get drawn out through the.
Yeah. Okay. Anytime there's a hurricane, we've noticed a lot of our, and we've actually genetically proved that with fish in the Cape Fear being marked individually from our fish we put in Jordan. So we've actually genetically proven that fish we're stocking in Jordan are going downstream into the Cape Fear proper. And when we weighed that against, it being just a not a good summertime lake for those fish, it gets so hot and stagnant during a drought, and they have to eat so much during the summertime. It's just not a great lake for growth of those fish. But there is potential. I'm not going to promise anything, but there is potential for hybrids to eventually end up back in Jordan. But stripers are probably going away for.
I know that we used to like to go out to the tail race and throw rattle traps there, and in the tail race, both in the rushing water and also in that still water there on the side, and we would catch those hybrid, on those rattle trap, and that was early 90s, mid 90s. We'd catch a lot there. So
the biggest concern for stopping the hybrids was back when the locks were fully functional. In the Cape Fear, they were getting into the lower Cape Fear and interfering with the actual anadromous stripers that were coming up to spawn in the Cape Fear. So we're still
one question is it true that the hybrids don't reproduce?
It is true. So they cannot. Most reservoir striped bass they'll go through all the motions and that they got to have flowing water for the eggs. So they spawn in big aggregate groups in the flow. The females broadcast the eggs and the males, fertilize the eggs in the flow. And then the eggs have to tumble downstream for miles and miles and miles. And a lot of our, especially North Carolina reservoirs, don't really have that kind of riverine system to. But I think
we have a lot of
recently at Bugs Island, they've confirmed natural reproduction in Bugs Island now, where there's enough river of the Dan River for the eggs to flow. I think that's a recent finding that we found up there, or Virginia's found up there.
I think that's all the questions that have been posted so far. Yeah. One guy said he wished that we had a Santee Cooper a little closer. And, I'm always interested in the lakes that have the cypress trees, just that type of environment. And I know you and I talked the other day that a long time ago there was an effort to. So there's lots of rumors about everything we do in fishing. It seems like there's lots of rumors as to who killed the stuff at Harris.
Yeah.
There's lots of rumors. I was even telling you, there's lots of rumors at Jordan. So straight across from the dam, there's an island at Jordan that a lot of locals and some. This story was told to me by a guy that was a pro fisherman. He fished BASS and FLW, and he said they call it Millionaire Island because a guy that had lots of money went out there and planted those cypress trees on that little island across the dam. And Seth set me straight on that the other day. He told me how they really got there. So I think it'd be interesting for you to touch on that a little bit too.
Yeah, so I think that was a Corps of Engineers project early on in the lake's history where they thought that those trees might grow better in that lake. But I think they figured out that soil's still not right for it. They need that mucky, true coastal tannic, mucky soil. And the trees that are there are just a remnant of that. I'll bet those trees are 30 years old or more now.
They've been there ever since I can remember, but I'm a young guy, so
yeah. How old is Jordan now? It was 83, so it was
around 83 when it was flooded.
It's probably 40 some odd years old now. So those trees are probably at least 35 years old.
So interesting story. I mean, I was born and raised right here. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. A lot of my friends at that time, in my elementary school friends, had to move because their houses were being, taken over either under the water or, just the land that surrounds the lake.
Yeah.
And we could go out and we watched guys ride four-wheel drives and dirt bikes and stuff down in the lake while it was, being constructed. But they had a dedication of the dam. And I wish I probably do have the book over here behind me in my office here, but they had a Jordan Lake or dam dedication somewhere in the early 80s, 83, 84, somewhere around that range. I think it was flooded. And for some of these guys are not even going to know what square dancing is, but my parents square danced.
Okay.
And so they did. My brother-in-law was the Chatham County Forest Ranger.
Okay.
So they had the Forest Service out there flying the helicopter over the lake and picking up buckets of water and taking it up, and dropping the water. The square dancers put on, an exhibition of square dancing out there. And people are just find it funny that I can remember when they flooded the lake. I mean, I was anywhere from 11 to 13 years old.
Yeah.
And both of my parents have passed away. My wife, after, I can't remember if it was after my mother passed away, after my father passed away, gave me a book for Christmas. And you can go into Barnes and Noble and they have these books that, there's a book dedicated to Chatham County or Pittsburgh, and one to Sanford, and one to Raleigh. There's a book out there, and it's just a bunch of pictures that have been collected people just about Jordan Lake. And if you flip about halfway through that book, there's 2 pictures of my parents in that book, square dancing out there at the dam dedication. Awesome. So I thought that, they're gone, but I've got pictures of them in a book, and I just thought that was a neat thing.
Yeah.
Another good question that I can't believe I didn't even think of, because there have been rumors about the housing, and will we ever see housing on some of the lakes in this area?
Yeah. If we ever did, I bet Harris would be the first choice because, Falls and Jordan are both considered flood control reservoirs. Right. So that, there's potential during a 1 in 1,000-year catastrophic flooding event. They would let both Harris or Falls back way up if they needed to keep, Wilmington in particular for Jordan. Yeah. I think Jordan was made particularly to reduce flooding around Wilmington. So, you'd have to build a house on 35-foot tall stilts on Jordan probably to ensure you won't ever get flooded. But I don't know, I never say never, but right now, most of it I think is gonna remain public lands. Our game lands. A lot of our game lands are on these.
That's right. CP&L is or now Duke is probably the single largest landowner that allows their land to be publicly hunted land.
Yeah, and hopefully it stays that way. We have a good relationship with a lot of those groups, and we love to maintain as much public land for game lands as we can.
With I wouldn't be, like you said, that there's lots of rumors floating around about Harris. Once Duke took over Harris, then they really started. I heard that. Well, my buddy works for Duke, Power, and he said, don't be surprised if you start seeing houses. And I kind of bought into the rumors. We've got a mutual friend that we were talking about that does lake management for Duke. I kind of asked him about it, and he said, well, I don't know of any plans to allow development. But with the recent announcement yesterday of this car manufacturing plant coming,
I heard about that.
I mean, it's right off the banks of Jordan.
Yeah,
it's on Pea Ridge Road. So this car manufacturing plant is going to be between Jordan and Harris.
Yeah,
right off US 1 in Moncure. 7,500 employees, $4 billion investment. I would almost think maybe some of these executives might have enough pull, that they might could talk to Duke and say, hey, I'd love to have my mansion right on the side of that lake,
Yeah. I'm glad that the WRC doesn't have to deal with hardly any of the land sales or anything like that. And hopefully anything that
houses we see are power company houses. I mean, power company lakes, though.
Yeah.
And I told people, I was like, well, I don't know why it would be any different because it went from CP&L and then to Progress and then to Duke. Because if you look at your Baden chain, right, your Tillery and all that, those are all old CP&L lakes. Yeah, those are CP&L permits on those docks. So I'm just surprised they didn't allow it at Harris from the beginning. I'm glad they didn't. I really enjoy going to lakes that have docks. I watch all the pros fish docks. And so growing up around here, I mean, the majority of almost all of my 99% of every time I've been fishing has been on Jordan, Harris, or the Cape Fear River.
Oh, okay.
So I never have an opportunity to fish docks. So I love, like when the bass boat club that I was in, when we would go to Tillery, I loved going to Tillery just for that reason. I went to the same cove every single time because it had a rocky point on the front. It had a creek flowing, a creek bed flowing through the back of it. I mean, I just found this honey hole that out of 5 tournaments I fished with that bass boat club, I won 3 of them.
Yeah.
Just in that one little cove. I just motored up there, trolled around for 6.5, 7 hours, and then motored back to the boat ramp.
That's right.
And, but I mean, the fact that I won told you it wasn't a great club to start with. But
luckily them being flood control reservoirs, I don't think we got to worry about that at Jordan or Falls. And anything designated as a game land hopefully isn't gonna be sold. We will sell timber off of our game lands, but we rarely will ever sell our actual physical property from our game lands.
Well, my nephew now works in the Forest Service office there at Jordan Lake.
Okay.
He's one of the regional, I guess you call it regional. There's 3 regions and a bunch of districts, or one or the other. We've got a nice little launch point right there from their office, right on Lakeside, right up around the old rock quarry. They're very close to the old rock quarry back there. So now, did you make it all the way through your presentation?
No, I got one more slide here for
let me pull it up.
Basically just the call for volunteers. So especially for our artificial our natural habitat work, or any of our planting of the aquatic plants, we always need volunteers. So just reach out to me or any of those that you saw on that list at the beginning. If you just Google NCWRC Fish Biologist, you can find the biologist in your area, and let us know that you'd like to be on our volunteer list. And we'll
I'll tell you
on all our projects in the lake, and tell us which lake you'd particularly like to help us out on, and we'll send you an update on where we'll be and when we'll be at that reservoir.
Well, our club, predominantly fishes Harris, Falls, and Jordan. Those are what we call our 3 home lakes because we're trying to be a Raleigh-based trail. We're going to Baden this year. We're going to McIntosh this year. We're going to W. Carr Scott this year. But I think I feel pretty safe in saying that I'd love to see us get involved, as an organization. And have some of our guys come out on these work. I mean, we're fishing these lakes, and a lot of us fish these lakes every single weekend.
Okay.
And at least for me personally, I feel, I like to get get involved with. I like what Keith McGee just said. Just build some docks on
Yeah, I saw that.
without the houses, and we'll just call them habitat. And that's really
Yeah.
that's really
That'd
what
be
they
pretty
are,
expensive.
right?
I think our PVC structures are only like $2 or $3 a piece.
Wow.
I think docks would be a little more expensive than those.
But I think through this relationship that we're forming and having you on here a couple times,
Yeah.
And guys getting educated as to what's going on.
Yeah.
I feel pretty sure. I mean, I know a lot of these guys pretty well now, and I feel pretty sure that we can get some guys, that'll come out and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you use volunteers to set the artificial stuff. I could carry one or two on my metal boat probably.
Yeah.
If you needed to help drop them
we're
off.
usually good on boats and low on manpower. So
Okay.
we have a 24-foot pontoon boat that's basically been stripped, and we can hold plenty of people and tractors on it. We just need people to help us put them together is a big pinch point.
The best way to know where these things are is to be there when you set them.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And
we encourage, bring your cell phone. If you help us, bring your cell phone, put it on compass mode and screenshot the exact compass location as soon as it drops. And you'll have the benefit of knowing, 2-3 months before it's on the website.
And I'm not going to say we can or can't, but if we could drop a couple in there and just not put them on the website, that would be more, right?
Yeah, I can't promise you that, but
Jacob Miles says that he would love to tag along on a shocking trip at how do you pronounce that lake?
Kamak. It's in Alamance County, yeah.
And
shocking's a little different because our boats are usually smaller.
Right.
We can't hold as many folks, and it's a lot more safety minded on those boats. So we can definitely take some folks out, but not a ton of folks out shocking.
Yeah.
Let us know if you ever want to be involved in.
Well, I've already got 2 guys talking about signing up to volunteer. And of course, we've got another guy on there who I think pretty well is saying that you're a great fishing guy.
Yeah, that might be Alex Carlo.
I think it is.
He actually caught a 9.4 on Jordan out of the back of my boat a few weeks ago.
Hey, catching any fish of size out of the back of a boat is commendable, right?
We were on the 64 causeway, and I was throwing a crankbait, and he was throwing a jerkbait, and he caught 2 good ones right out the back of the boat on a jerkbait.
And just making sure if I hadn't missed anything.
I chose this last photo in particular in that, especially for kayak anglers, our small reservoirs, your Townsends, your Oak Hollows, they've still got some big fish in them too. That photo there was taken at Townsend.
Okay.
Small reservoir in Greensboro, and
that's on the shocking boat, right? That's what that equipment is.
So that's if we tried to fish for them, we shoot to collect about 400 bass per lake per year.
Wow.
So if we tried to use any other method, it'd be a long process. We can usually collect about 80 to 90 fish a day with our electric fishing equipment.
Well, we've been an hour. I don't know how long you were planning, but I think an hour's a good.
And, I saw where you got a tournament on Jordan this year. If we could just do the next one right before Jordan, I can really focus on our Jordan Lake, especially where we caught big fish last year on Jordan, and talk about Jordan a lot more.
Yeah, well, you and I probably need to talk about that one, before it goes live.
Okay.
No, I just want to know where you caught all the big fish.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe I can trick you into thinking we're live, and you're just talking to me. So I'm pulling up our schedule here. You'd think I would have it committed to memory by now. Our next Jordan is in May, so that's not really that far away. I mean, we're going to be in April here by the end of the week.
Yeah.
So guys, just so you guys know, this is a planned thing. We're going to talk to Seth several times this fishing season. As many times as you want to come on, Seth.
Yeah,
we'll do this. Got a comment that this was informative and a couple thank yous. I definitely want to thank you for your time. This is outside your normal working hours, so that's thank you for doing that. You're an employee of the state, and for you to do it outside your normal working hours, I really appreciate it. I'm sure that the people watching do too.
Yeah,
and
happy to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I'll put my contact info up one, or you don't have it shared anymore, do you? Just in case people want.
I'll pull it back up here.
Yeah. That's my work cell phone and my work email there. And then my official title is District 5 Fish Biologist 1. We have 2 biologists per district. Kelsey Roberts is my counterpart here in
and all this is also available.
And
the downside of being a state employee is all this information is also available right on the Wildlife Resource website.
That bass right there may or may not be an 8.7 caught out of a certain lake here in Alamance County.
Are there lakes that we're familiar with that you guys don't have anything to do with the management of?
No, as long as it has a public boat ramp, we're usually tasked with managing the game fish. So there is a small reservoir in Caswell County called, I think some people call it Frogsboro. It's a relatively large reservoir, but there's no public access. That's one. But if it has a boat ramp that you can just pay to use, or if it's one of our free boat ramps, we're tasked with managing it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. I figured maybe some of the ones like I don't know, the local city reservoirs, there's a lot more of those in Alamance County than here.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if you guys were involved much in.
Yeah, we love to build a good relationship with those folks, and I'm hopefully working on a habitat project on one of these Alamance County lakes real soon in the next few years. So.
Well, again, man, thank you very much. It's been very informative to me. I think all the guys that are watching it have found it informative.
Can you see our view total, our number of viewers? My supervisor might want to.
I can only see how many are live at any one given time.
Oh, okay.
We peaked around 16 or 17. I will be able to track, rewatches both on.
Okay.
It's actually on 3 different locations. It's on our Facebook group, our Facebook page, and our YouTube page.
Okay.
So I'll be able to keep a track of that. If you need any stats.
Yeah, my supervisor might like to know how many people viewed.
Yeah, but as of tonight, we did have 15 or 16 on it at one point live.
Yeah,
and then we'll I'll keep up with the like a week out. I'll say, hey, how many people did this reach, and I'll get that to you. And so, hey guys, one thing that'll help Seth out with his supervisor is make sure you tell people about this. If you found this informative, let people know, share it, let them know that we're going to be doing it again. Like I said, I'm just excited to be able to do this as an outreach of the club. And not everything will be with Seth, but hopefully everything we do will be interesting and have something to do with fishing and education. So with that, I'm going to sign off for the night. Seth, I hope you have a good night. I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. Sounds great.
Thanks, man.
Touch. Thank y'all.
Everybody out there, if you've enjoyed it, like I said, just share it, let your friends know, and hopefully we can keep this thing going. Hopefully it's a worthwhile effort. Hope everybody has a good night. Thank you.